It was June in 1954. The Parisian night air was cool enough for a rap. However, Mary Lou Williams ignored it and her goosebumps, walking briskly toward her hotel, having left the ox on the roof, despondent, bitter, angry, sad, and homesick for America. According to John S. Wilson, a New York Times journalist, during a tour of Europe, she became distressed at what she saw as the greed, selfishness, and envy that impinged on her music. Many months of soul-searching lay ahead for Williams, where she would question the meaning, value, and purpose of her life and art. The makeup, forced smiles, lovely French couture evening gowns, piled up hair, French perfumes, expensive jewelry, champagne and marijuana furs, and of course, her music covered up Williams' depression for a while. Perhaps the death of jazz pianist Garland Wilson on May 31st, 1954, pushed her over the edge. She became friends with him in London and he joined her in Paris. But even before his passing, a malaise had settled over her, like the way winter or the rainy season hunkers down on a city. The jazz pianist started to isolate herself at the hotel and strolled around Paris alone. On one of those occasions, she reported seeing the Virgin Mary in a church garden in correspondence to acquaintances. The 44-year-old alluring Mary Lou Williams dipped in a rich, smooth, dark chocolate hue, spun the roulette wheel, and betted on the 1952 European tour to reboot her career. And she waved goodbye to Jim Crow, which prevented her from being considered for bookings and projects that yielded significant exposure and financial enrichment, the colorism among Black Americans, and the musicians who sabotaged her chances to work in studios and recording sessions and to receive commissions out of jealousy over her accomplishments, as Williams was the first Black female member of ASCAC in 1943. Likewise, she was the first Black female to have a jazz composition, Zodiac Suite, performed by a symphony orchestra in 1945. However, in Paris, despite club bookings, TV and radio guest appearances, and invitations to the salons and mansions of the wealthy and powerful, Mary Lou was still hard-pressed financially and unable to finance a return trip to the States. In fact, Mary Lou's debts were mounting in Paris, and her musical creativity was suffering too. And instead of saving when there was an influx of cash, she purchased posh clothing and expensive perfumes. Gerard Pouchonnet, a French jazz drummer, claimed in Linda Dow's book, Morning Glory, that Williams lacked business shrewdness and that her business contracts, music compositions, and correspondence weren't properly organized, but stored within a suitcase, which raises the question of whether Williams obtained legal counsel about the contracts she was signing. Cornered and straitjacketed by the European fans' demands for boogie-woogie and by the stiff and robotic playing European musicians, she was becoming overwhelmed as her soul clamored and burned for bebop.
You must have read what Shakespeare said back in a distant age. All the world's a stage, and the men and women in it, merely players. You are the actors in this fast-moving drama. You are the factors in the world's panorama. The world's a stage and life's a play. So you must be certain at the rise of the curtain whether you'll stand in the balcony with your cigarette butts or sit in the orchestra with Dizzy and Salt Peanut.
But bebop lacked fans in Paris, and therefore securing a venue to play it would prove an unsuccessful undertaking. Pouchonnet, having fallen in love with the jazz pianist, attempted to comfort her. She rebuffed him. However, he persisted, and she finally caved in, needing to be physically held and reassured everything would be okay. Possibly after witnessing the ghost of the recently departed jazz pianist Garland Wilson in the hotel room, along with the spirits of her pals, jazz tenor saxophonist Dick Wilson, banjo player Joe Williams, and swing and jazz guitarist Charlie Christian in the hotel room as well. As Mary was born with the gifts of second sight and intuition. Moreover, she might have been struggling with the guilt associated with having multiple abortions too. Williams continued to work at the Ox on the Roof to cover her day-to-day living expenses and for funds to return to the States. She also sent out an SOS to the Black American expatriate community for assistance. Sometime in July, Williams left Paris to reside with Gerard at his grandmother's house in the countryside. She mainly ate, slept, read psalms continuously, and prayed while there. In August, Williams managed to wiggle out of her contract with the Ox on the Roof, a gay French cabaret and bar. In late December of 1954, she sailed to America, leaving a heartbroken Gerard Pouchonnet. Ultimately, Mary Lou would pierce the chatter of uncertainty and overpower the illusion of worthlessness, and she would emerge from the experience renewed. Decades later, when asked about that period in her life during an interview, Williams would reply, "It was the turning point."